Welcome back to Let's Talk and Grow with Miss Roshumba, part 2, with my brethren here, Brother Coon. And he's going to start off by doing one of his pieces because I told you he's a poet. And so he's going to show it. So let's go.
And I say, black love be beautiful. Black love be beautiful. Black love be beautiful, but it also be trauma. Passed down by grandma, inflicted by grandpa. Black love be beautiful, but it also be trauma. Passed down by grandma, inflicted by grandpa. I battle with not turning my heart off, allowing my feelings to go numb. I've done it before. I know the results. I use my memory as an experiment, taking a walk through my experience. When giving your all feels as if you've given everything. When being trapped in the bondage of generationally inherited unhealthy relationships make you want to abandon the thoughts of wedding rings. When you watch for 30 years as daddy whose demeanor you've inherited runs trains with prostitutes, using mama's heart as the ticket, your mother, whose heart you shared, accompanied by her forgiveness, struggling to release her inability to honor herself, to value herself, to love herself, to not accept peasants in her royal palace, but somehow still you seem to find yourself manifesting the black love you dreamt of back then. Yes, black love is beautiful, but it also be trauma. Passed down from grandma, inflicted by grandpa's inability to speak vulnerably about his emotional pain, passed down by his father's lack of fathering, due to the lashes placed on his back by those that had lashes placed on their back by master. I got a question to ask you. After all of this, how does black love exist? Without their descendants' hearts being abused and whipped, how does this man give his all without feeling like she got him whipped? Like she no longer appreciates his presence as a gift and all the genuine love he's given to her kids, not so secretly loving them as his, but still, in their eyes, the same spirit his father carried. This inability to appreciate when you're being loved by a giving heart, the same spirit their father carried. And the cycle continues. With hopes it stops here, without him turning his heart off. Because he's done it before, and we all know the results. So black love be beautiful. Black love be beautiful. Black love just be beautiful.
My brethren, very powerfully and touching.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for allowing me the space to share it. I shared it probably on 1 or 2 platforms, and then I was like, nah.
Yes.
They're not ready for that.
Yes.
They, a lot of people who are, that conversation makes us uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then it makes us feel like we need to choose a side.
Yes.
And that's the part, and I've been trying to stay away from that battle for years, for about 10 years.
To choose a side, whether moms or dads?
Choose a side, whether black man or black woman.
Okay.
And the thing is, and it's funny, I actually just had a conversation with that person who actually sparked the conversation, and I brought it up in the last segment before the commercial. A part of that healing process was me asking the question, why did she have so much pain and trauma, and why did she have so much of a vendetta against me? Right.
And you're talking about your ex.
Right.
Why ex. She had okay.
And what I realized was, and I had a conversation with one of my homegirls, one of my lady friends at the time, and she was like, Coon, don't you know like our race is the only one that does not protect black women? And I told her immediately I didn't agree. I'm like, we'll kill you about our mama. Your mama jokes didn't have to, your mama, what, we would immediately, growing up, that would result in a fist to the face.
Correct.
And then I took a little bit more time to really think and look deeper and really listen to what she was saying. And because she was also someone who had a father there, but she still didn't feel safe and protected.
Right.
And then I really took an account and look around. And then I started really looking deeper into like even our culture and our music. No, we'll fight about our mama, right? A lot of times. But in the same token, we also, it's also part of our culture to not save her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her, right?
And I wonder, I'm going to play a little devil advocate here.
Yeah.
Could it be that the fact that we don't protect we may not be able to protect mother sometimes because father shows that, especially if you're a black male watching father being the dominating source, bringing fear to the home. You know, there comes a time when you have to choose. Is to be gentle and kind and with humility. Is it a feminine thing only? Can it be that men could have that without be considering that they are gay? You know, because, you know, there comes a time in life that, you know, around 14 or 15 that you have to stop, you know, trying to calm mom down about what's going on and become a man. And what does becoming a man then look like? Is it like being strong and domineering and, you know, and puff up? And if that's the case that we see in many homes, where, you know, father is the monster, you know, and that's what being a man is to be monster, put on that mask, hiding that pain. And when you see that happen, then the girls are also being molded to believe that that's what a strong man should look like. And, you know, think about it. Could it be that that's when they choose a mate? He has to be a little rough around the ears to, you know, to be able to love me the way I, you know. So those are some of the things that occurs. And one thing, I started this off by saying, what is the origin of our discontent?
Yeah.
Now we have our home origin, and then we have the origin of the beginning.
Yeah.
So, do you think that has something to do with it? Like, you know, being a man means I have to be a lot like father, and father being strong and you know, have it my way and put fear in the woman's heart. Talk to me.
I believe, and this is only just my belief from what I observed.
Yes.
And I also was the boy that went and sat at the girls' table because I you know, if I like the girl over here, but I also got to overhear a lot of, and I have a lot of lady friends, a lot of homegirls who I become the protector of, right? A lot of sisters where, so 10 years ago, after that, when I realized that, like, yo, we probably don't pull up as much as we should. We probably are not as present as we should for our women. So I really I took it upon myself to kind of like step up in that way, older, younger.
Wow.
Right? And whether dangerous or not so dangerous, being there. There's been many situations for a lot of the sisters in this building.
That you stood for.
Yeah, and so I say that I also got to learn a lot of their story. And it's one thing when you're in a box and you don't get to connect with many people. But when you're somebody who connected with a lot of people from here across the country, and the stories and the patterns the same, I believe that a lot of it stems from not having a father. Right. And then a lot of it stems from, even when you did, for those that do, they were afraid of the father they had.
Okay.
So
I love how we are seeing a pattern. A pattern universally in this country, the pattern of the broken homes. Have you given a thought to the origin of that broken home?
I have as well.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I know for a fact that was a design, and that is, if you want to break down a people, remove the men, remove the protectors, remove the warriors, right? Let's just go, and I'm gonna try to get graphic. I'll try to make sure I'm appropriate with the graphic. But
Right.
if we're talking war, if you want to destroy people, just kill all of their warriors, right? Kill them, or steal their manhood, steal their strength from them, steal their masculinity. And so we know there was a lot of things that took place when some of us was brought over here.
Right.
And a lot of it was about a part of the design that will be a ripple effect
Correct.
for generations.
Correct.
And when you kill the masculinity
Yes.
in a man, and you
Broke
kill,
their spirits.
and you break the spirit.
Not just a physical killing sometimes,
Yeah.
it's mainly emotional.
I'm gonna keep you alive, but what
Right.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break you. And we know that it's similar tactics to what they use in the military today. So it's a sign
Exactly.
that our government, obviously, that's its style of breaking things.
And knowing that,
Mhm.
what is it that you do to connect those two seasons?
Yeah,
The past
yeah,
with the current, the cause and the effects.
yeah.
Because if one is to be able to, if someone were to meet you today
Yeah.
and want to know who you are, they have to kind of know your family.
Where you come from.
Where you come from, what you went through. Like you took the journey back to
Mhm.
your father's home and saw, okay.
So yeah.
So we must journey outside of our brokenness
Same
now to
culture.
the cause of our discontent.
Look back.
It's more than once that I've said that word.
Yeah, go back and fetch it.
And with that saying,
Yeah.
you probably have heard about what the schools are currently doing or what they haven't done, you see.
Okay.
When you think about your education, first I want to ask you, what have you learned about what it meant to be a black man in America when you went to school here? What was your education about?
So I was in the Elk Grove School District,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to the Title Ones. There's only at that time there was only two Title I schools, which are the low performing schools
Right.
in Elk Grove School District. So they were not in Elk Grove, but on the line, right? So they were in Valley High. So I went to Valley High School. I went to all the schools that fed in the Valley High School, and then also some of the schools that fed in the Florida High School.
Gotcha.
And I can probably still count on half my hand the black teachers that I had. And because of that, there was a lot of times, and I salute my mother, because when it came to that, my mother she was always up there advocating, right? There was always a lot of, in my childhood, there was a lot of not loving my black self, right? There was never, only time we got to hear about anything black was during Black History Month, and of course it was only Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Right, and then we'll hear about Rosa Parks and the bus.
Yes.
Though that was it. Of course, there was no Malcolm X. Of course, there was no Mansa Musa. Of course, there was no. There was none of the kings, none of the queens, nothing that made us feel powerful. Nothing that helped our identity. That made us feel like we were worth anything, especially. And then even being able to count some of a few black kids.
Right.
And they made sure they spread us out
Right.
between classes.
So it appears to me then the situation that we have is about the situation of not knowing our story. That's what we should focus our attention on, because otherwise we will be basically putting Band-Aid on the brokenness that we passed on from one generation to another.
Calling handmade Band-Aids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you do from day to day to teach you what you need to know about what has been hidden in plain sight?
I read. I went on a journey of transformation after my shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a slow journey. It started with spirit. It started with God.
Excuse me, were you shot by an African American person like you?
So, yeah.
Audience,
Yeah.
those in Africa, I want you to hear clearly.
A light complected. And so coming up, it was, and at that
Light
time,
against dark, yeah.
right? Going, and then when we really start looking at, and some say that it's a myth or it's a tale, but the Willie Lynch letters, the design is very apparent though. And even now we're seeing the design of black woman against black man against black woman. I experienced the light skin against the dark skin. I remember at some point how I felt like, to a point to where we would only gather friends who were dark skin, like, yo, we ain't rocking with them.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the programming.
Right.
For a long time. And then I remember when I made a decision to, like, yo, I have to do something different. Right. And so that started with mindset. That started with me, like, it started with self-love, honestly. Started loving myself, and a lot of that came about after I woke up out of the hospital.
Right.
There was a different kind of feeling inside of me, and one thing, I saw my family's hurt. I saw them crying about me, but I also, for whatever reason, I try to explain this often, and then I realized people really don't get it. I was given insight that a lot of that hurt was beyond me, was before me. The hurt that they were feeling in the hospital. At that time, me and my father wasn't speaking before. Like,
Keep it loud.
Yeah, me and my dad had just, like, one of probably, like, the worst whoopings ever. Like,
He had given you.
Yeah, my dad was abusive, right? So it was a lot of that, and it was a lot of abuse out of fear. Like, if you get too big, because I was already, like, the same size as my dad when I was 13, 14.
Yes.
If you ever get too big for me to whoop you, I'll kill you, right? So all of that, which at this point, I'm 14, 15, I'm working out now. So now I'm like, yeah, you're not putting your hands on me anymore, right? And so it was a lot of that, but my dad was crying the hardest in the hospital, right? And at that, there was like an increased empathy for feeling and kind of like, yo, this pain that y'all feeling is different, and my sight was different. My vision was blurry for a while, but then it got when I started really looking, like, what's going? Oh, and that was
It's almost like a rebirth.
Yes, ma'am. That's the.
Did you use that? Is that something you felt like a rebirth?
I use it often, and I tell people, and that's the reason also. And a lot of people ask me about, like, my name and all that, and I tell them, they killed Christopher. Christopher wasn't strong enough to live in this world, so they targeted him. He was a dreamer kid. He was a happy kid that they didn't know, because his size, you wouldn't know what was inside me unless I shared a poem. But back then I was more shy, and you would just see me, right? When I was new to a school, if you didn't know me, you would look at me like I was your bully, but you would bully me too. And so I had that a lot when I moved schools from Herman Lineback in Valley High to Anna Kirschgater, right, which is elementary school that feeds into Rudder, into Florin High School.
Including the teachers, they were frightened.
You.
I had to throw that out there because, it's one thing for the students to be, but where did they learn it from?
In third grade, they placed me in anger management, told me I had anger and I really need to manage it. But abandonment and some built-up tension was really the symptoms of why I was getting detention, but you couldn't predict it by just staring at my flesh. You wouldn't know this little kid had some grown man stress, because I kept it compressed and bottled up inside my chest. So I guess that's what you get when you're watching me flex.
So what would it be if we took the truth as you know it to be, based on where you've been?
Yeah.
Protected by the Almighty.
Sure.
And use that as the weapon to rise up and awaken.
Yeah.
Because what I've come to realize is we have done nothing wrong. We've been a victim in a system that has perpetuated our oppression from one generation to another. So when the light goes on, it's showtime. It's showtime to go and do the work and get paid doing the work. Get paid to do the work, because then the ways will be clear. Because how can a system make a living off of the most gentlest individuals, the first in creation, and has done it for so many years and get away with it?
This is why. So I do.
And get away with it.
Yeah. And this is why we do the work. I do the work in the schools that I do. A lot of people just think like, oh, that's righteous that you try. Like, you don't understand. I am that kid. I am, when I pull up for black boys that are in the office and that are singled out, and it's nothing but white faces looking at them and treating them like they're animals. I walk in and advocate because I know that feeling.
That's correct.
And there was nobody.
So that's what you're doing? You go to, is that your daily bread?
Yeah, so I have a few programs in the schools.
Okay.
And really all of this came about organically because at the time there was not many that was around doing that work. And so my stories, like all parts of my stories, connect to many parts of my work.
Right.
So gunshot, so trauma survivors. So I also work with crime survivors as well. So young people that have been victims of gun violence.
Okay.
And this started 2010. There was a sister who was a case manager of a few young people that was victims, and she was Hispanic. She would like, and she heard my story. They wrote a story about me in a newspaper. She came to the event that I spoke at, which was a ceasefire event.
Yes.
And then she was like, "Hey, I have a few young people, and I'm having a hard time connecting with them. And I need to. Would you be willing to be a resource?" And so it started very organically like that, to where I would, and there was not many who have been shot that was willing to share their story.
Yes.
So I would sit by some of their bedsides and I would help walk them through the process. Right. And I would really, because I didn't get any counseling, right? My family didn't get any counseling after what took place. And it's still affecting my family to this day. But because of that, what I ended up doing was creating, I guess you can say, a formula and a system and a program, and I call it the pain to power process, right?
The pain to power process.
Yeah.
So we're gonna come back because we want to hear more about what he's doing now to fix where he's been.
Yeah.
And to be the change maker in the 21st century. Because he's a young man, y'all. He's early 30s. You see, and so we should be giving thanks that we have warriors like he that's going to fix it by doing the right thing and realize that he has the power. We don't have to be dictated. We don't have to just roll with the punch anymore. We could do something about it. So we'll be right back.